What's up, guys? Got another episode of Tuned In Sports coming to you here. My name is Bryson.
I'm Bennett.
Steve.
I'm Don.
And they are Tuned In Sports. Actually, we're all Tuned In Sports. They're DENT SPORTS, though, as well. And, we're just going to bring you guys another episode of this thing that we started where we just dive into each division. Last time we talked about the NFC South, and we figured we'd keep it down south and go ahead and dive into the NFC. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about here, because there's a number of interesting things going on with some interesting teams in that division. Starting with the Atlanta Falcons. Who wants to get the clip off first on the Falcons?
I can start. The ATL.
All right.
Or do I call it DOA? Dead on arrival. Ever since they've blown the Super Bowl, the 28-3 awesomeness, they decided to back it up this season with the only team ever to have over, I think it's 39 points with no turnovers and lose the game. Previous record of this was 440-0. So, again, kudos to the Falcons for this. Organization, Matty Ice, I don't know. I think he's done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Julio Jones, I think, is on the downhill on his career as well. The coaching staff is abysmal. They even have Gurley. I don't think he's going to do anything that's more of an improvement on that as well. I just don't see this organization going anywhere up anytime soon. I just see it more getting dismantled and being picked apart. And I don't think the coach is going to be able to go back to Seattle either. It's so bad because I don't think Carroll's going to want him because he has whatever he needs right now in Seattle. So Quinn is just, I don't know. I think Quinn's going to have to disappear for a few years and then come back as a D coordinator somewhere else, just like the normal NFL, right? They can, do a horrible job and they'll end up to be a coordinator somewhere else, 2 years down the road. And then you go, hey, well, didn't that guy suck it with, whatever, and now he's a coordinator again?
Case in point, Hugh Jackson.
Yeah. or I've seen it, with Wade Phillips. The same thing. Great defensive mind, becomes the head coach of the Broncos, and I think he would, at the time in the 90s, was the only head coach, in the modern era with Elway that had a losing record at home, which is something you don't do usually in Denver. And so then, guess what? He resurfaced again in Buffalo and resurfaced again in Dallas. And, but again, he found his niche finally when he came back to us and then went to the Rams too. D-coordinator. That's what you're good at.
Yep.
Just stay right there.
Yep.
And write it out and do it from there. But, yeah, the Atlanta Falcons, just look at that onside kick, this past week against Dallas, and that tells you just like, what are you guys doing? You got 3 or 4 guys just watching the ball going around and around and around in circles, and, nobody's diving on it or grabbing it, and they're like, oh, hey, there's a guy with the star on his helmet. Yeah, oh, it's 10 yards. Oh, too late. It's just really bad. Yeah. With it, and I don't see it. And again, amazing organization. I know Blank has done everything. He's built 2 new stadiums. There's teams in this league that never had 1 new stadium. Up to the last few years, almost all the teams in California didn't have a new stadium. They're playing in stadiums from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Chargers were in the Coliseum Rams were in the Coliseum for how long?
Yeah. They're all in the Coliseum. Raiders were in the Coliseum. San Francisco was in, Candlestick up until just recently. When they went to to the new Levi Stadium.
Yeah.
So again, it's just there's nothing at fault on the ownership part. It's just organization on down with the coaching, and then just try to get the right players in there.
Yep.
To me, I think that onside kick equals the state of that organization right now.
Yeah.
But
I think it's just kind of puzzling in a lot of ways because I think they have a lot of talent. I think that they obviously they made it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and basically since they made it to the Super Bowl, it's just been all over the place. They had one season. I think the very next season they didn't even make it to the playoffs, and then after that, it's just been expectations, reality. It's just been what's happened. I don't understand. They haven't. Everybody loses players to injury or just in the off season. It happens to every team, especially teams that hit the Super Bowl, because then everybody thinks they're worth a little bit more and wants to test the market. But with that being said, still, what happened? I think that they're just one of those teams that can't get above water. They're just constantly stuck somewhere, and I don't foresee it improving this season. And then, like he alluded to, before too long, it's back in the quarterback hunt. And how many of those all-star level quarterbacks are there that come out every year? Not very often. And the ones that do, who's getting those guys? If you're not really bad and you're just in the middle, you're going to have a hell of a time getting any of those people without having to make some serious trades. And what do those serious trades usually equate? Giving up serious amounts of picks or weapons or something to get those to those places, and usually overpaying on the hope that somebody's going to come through. So I just, like he said, I just think it's going to be a mess for a while.
And to top it all off, I don't even like their new uniforms. I think.
Fashionably.
That's where it started. Yeah. With the uniforms, I guess.
I just think they look horrendous. I think their older ones looked a lot better than these ones that they're wearing now. That's all I'm saying.
Any more indicators of where the team's at? Don't even like the uniform anymore.
So, yeah, I would tend to fall in line. I think they're kind of just treading water right now. And I don't know really what the ceiling is for this team, but I think they've already reached it. Back when they made it to the Super Bowl. I don't think. I think the quarterback's a pretty decent player, but again, it's not just one person. It's a group of people that need to play together as a team. Yep. And Julio Jones is, definitely one of the best receivers when healthy in the league. But with that being said, he's getting up in age a little bit. And, Todd Gurley, I don't know, I don't know what to expect from him. And I can see some changes being made. I'm actually surprised that the coach that's there is still there, considering what's happened since they made it to the Super Bowl. But, again, who am I to say anything when, this team's winning a lot more games than my team is. And, we still have our coach. So that's that.
Yeah. Well, just looking at it objectively, though, if I'm a fan of the team, I again, it just goes back to me of just what's really going on. And I think a big part of it, too, like I said before, is that even if the guys aren't getting old, you start going through coaching changes, and before long, the quarterback's going to be out. Is Julio Jones going to want to stick around for that? Probably not. I see him going somewhere else to get a ring, hopefully, for him. And some of these other guys, too, these upcoming players that they might have, I don't know how long I see them sticking around for it either. So it's just really a thing of they really need to win, not in a few years. They need to win now, and I just don't see them doing it. So, and then again, like I said before, and then you're back in the quarterback hunt and trying to find the guy, and before long, it's the same.
It doesn't help that they're in the NFC South.
Yeah.
Where you got, the emergence of Tom Brady on the Buccaneers, and the Saints are, you know, a solid
Always.
team, always in the mix. The Panthers are kind of in transition, but they look like they're actually pretty game as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not an easy road there to get to the top of that one. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. But speaking of the Panthers, what do you guys think about Carolina?
Man, I think they're headed in the right direction. Even without Newton, I think bringing in Bridgewater was a good replacement. I don't see this team going anywhere but up going forward. I think they got good ownership. You know, I just think, you know, they're going to be good going forward.
I would almost tend to agree with you. I think, you know, I mean, you got a new coach there. Bridgewater kind of been waiting in the Saints, you know, in New Orleans there, and I thought he did a wonderful job, you know, when he was on the field. But with that being said, I mean, when you got the offensive line and things that the Saints had weapon-wise, I mean, you have
to be a special talent not to look good.
Right, you have to really, you know, be playing pretty poor not to have some success there. But with that, I mean, I do like Bridgewater. I think he's, you know, his talent is better than given credit for.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to necessarily hurt you. I think he's a pretty heady quarterback and seems to make pretty good decisions. Again, you know, the Panthers' biggest problem is the division. There's no room for errors, and I mean, there's not an easy team in that division to play against. I mean, the Falcons, who we just talked about, I mean, yeah, they're struggling a little bit, but they're still dangerous, and they can put up 40 points on you in a hurry. And I don't know that Carolina's set up to do that. And then, you know, I love the running back there, but he just went out with an injury. So, and I'm not sure, is it a season ending?
No. They said 2 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Sprained ankle.
Okay. So,
But still.
I mean, it's just one of those things where when you're a team like Carolina that is coming into this season with a lot of unknowns, and you got a bunch of new pieces, and you know, a lot of optimism, but you know, skepticism as well. Where, you know, I mean, I don't think at the start of the season that the fans or the organization was looking at this like, hey, we're on our way to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. This watch. I think everybody was putting things in perspective. I mean, they obviously want to win as many games as they can and, you know, build towards the future. I do think Matt Rule's going to be fine as a coach. I think he's a pretty good coach. You know, but it's not easy to necessarily walk in and replace a guy like what was the coach's name?
Rivera.
Yeah, Rivera. You know, he was there for a lot of years, and you know, he did a hell of a job. And that's another guy that, you know, I think is forgotten about when they talk about, you know, good coaches in this league. And I thought for a lot of years that he did a wonderful job there. Mm-hmm. So Panthers moving forward, I mean, I think they got a chance to be pretty decent if they can put some pieces around, you know, get maybe a couple more receivers or whatever. I mean, running back wise, it doesn't get any better than McCaffrey right now. I mean, he can do it all. He can catch it. He can run it. And, I mean, he's solid.
Yeah.
And I mean, generally the Panthers play pretty solid defense. So if that continues, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in games. I'm not saying they're going to win a ton this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're in a lot of games.
Yeah, I was gonna. You know, Carolina Panthers, great organization, great city, and Charlotte, and so the organization has always been one of the higher end ones, for sure. Again, like you said earlier, I mean, me walking into Super Bowl 50, and California wasn't thinking that. I mean, they came in 15-1, and with Cam Newton, they had a solid defense and all that stuff, and you know, Denver needed to play one of their best games, especially on defense, and they did what they needed to do, and they pulled it out with that. But then after that game, things seemed to be turning a little bit inside the team, you know, whatever it was. But then the worst part of it all was then you start losing players to retirement early. Luke Kuechly goes out. I mean, you can't lose Luke Kuechly. That dude was a tremendous stud. He can carry a whole defense for sure.
Yep.
On his back. So I mean, with that, and then some other guys also early retired. On that defense as well. So again, you're trying to replace starters, and you can't do that right away without breaking the piggy bank. But then you start hurting other parts of the team as well. So they're just going along and trying to do the best they can, and then again, solid pickup on Bridgewater. You can't wrong him for that. He's a good quarterback, solid quarterback, and just like you said with the offense, everything goes through McCaffrey. How McCaffrey goes, how the Panthers go. Because again, that's a bona fide weapon, and he's so versatile with so much stuff that he can do with it. So I see him, again, just maybe hovering around 500, maybe. I don't know what might happen to him. And now with this McCaffrey injury, it might drop him a little bit lower than that. But like I said, at least I think they know what they need to do, and I think they're going to be able to address it, and I think they're going to be able to fill the needs that they need to have, and I think they're going to turn around and get it going.
One thing that I'd like to add to this is that they've been one of these organizations too that you don't see a new coach every season. Like, they stuck with these guys, which in my opinion is the way it should be. You can't expect somebody to be there 2 years and have you in a Super Bowl. I mean, if you're not there long enough to be able to change it, then
you're not going to.
Right. And now here I sit, yelling about firing Matt Patricia. But I've seen enough of this guy. I've seen enough of Patricia, and we're not here to talk about the Lions. We'll get into that in a different video. But I just think if I was a coach and I'm going to a place like Carolina where, they don't just go through coaches, they give guys a chance to actually produce. And I do think Matt Rule, like I said, I think he's got some potential to be a really good coach in this league. And, given, the scouting and everything that's going on there, if they get the right players in the right places, they're going to be okay. And they may finish last in the division, but, it's not an easy division. And I think, they're only going to get better as they're able to attract more players. And the better you get, the more times you can, the better chance you have of attracting free agents as well. So I think they'll be okay.
So I'm actually really excited to talk about the Panthers. I've actually been a fan of the team for a while. They're not my favorite team, but I'm a huge Cam Newton fan, and so him going to the team, I was an automatic oh yes, here we go. I'm going to root for whatever team he goes to. So I immediately, when he came into the league and went to the Panthers, I was like, all right, I'll root for the Panthers. And even though Cam Newton's gone now, I still have a lot of love for that organization. Like I said, Eagles are my team. They'll always be my team. But the Panthers are an organization that I respect a lot. I'm sad to see Newton go. But with that being said, I feel kind of like Don alluded to, since the Super Bowl, something's just kind of been off. I think they just haven't looked the same. And again, mark that up to whatever you want, whether that be the coaching or the players or the weapons on offense or injuries, whatever the case may be, they just haven't been the same team. And so I think a change was good for both sides. Like I said, sad to see him go, but that happens. That's football. But what I will say is, in the time that I was really paying attention to the Panthers a lot, I saw a lot of promising things, especially on defensive side of the ball. It was always, while Kuechly was in there especially, it was always a nightmare for offenses. Even when, our offense wasn't playing well, we were always pretty much in games because the defense just kept us hanging around. And Cam Newton, when he was on the team, he's just a playmaker. And when you have an X factor, or at least an X factor in my mind, like that on your team, it's a tricky combination So with that being said, I know that he's not always the greatest, most accurate passer in the world, but he can do a lot of other things besides just throwing the football around that you have to account for. And losing somebody like that, you're going to take a step back. With that being said, Bridgewater, great addition. I saw a lot of other teams, for instance, like the Bears and some of these other teams that went out and signed other people while Bridgewater was still on the market. And I'm just kind of scratching my head like, what are you guys doing? And then to hear that the Panthers went out and got him, I was like, now that is a winning move. Now, I'm not saying that equals Super Bowls, but looking at who was on the market, I thought he should have been the first person that people were like, hey, we need to get in contact with this guy, not Nick Foles. And I'm an Eagles fan, so, I don't have to tell you guys that I like Nick Foles a lot. But, not Nick Foles, not some of these other guys, Phillip Rivers, anything like that. Teddy Bridgewater would have been my first call. And from the Panthers' perspective, they went out, they got him, and he's played. That's it. I mean, he's played. Their record, it's not that great right now, but it's not because of just him. Again, like Don said, you lost one of the best defenders in football. Forget this era. He's just one of the greater players that has been put on the pads. So when you lose somebody like that, it's an adjustment. Again, to early retirement too. You didn't even get the full 15 years or whatever out that you get out of most guys. It was like 8. And even towards the end there, he wasn't in a lot of games. So in some respects, that kind of helps him because, they were able to adjust a little bit. Like, hey, we're kind of used to him not being on the field because he was getting injured with concussions so often. And I don't blame it at all for hanging it up before things started to get bad later in life. So all the respect in the world to him. But moving forward, again, you can't have all of those things happen where you lose your X-Factor quarterback, you lose X-Factor defensive players, people are leaving to retirement, you're losing all-stars on defense, and the wide receiving core is all over the place. You lose Greg Olsen. You can't have that and be in the NFC South and expect great things this year. So, being realistic, I think thus far they're exactly what I thought they would be. A team that goes out there, they play hard, they scrap each week, but they just come up short because they're just not there yet. But one thing that I wanted to point out that you guys kind of alluded to, or at least I think, Dad, you did, we talked about the Falcons. They're getting older. Matt Ryan, who knows how long he'll be there. And Julio Jones, some of these guys, if the coach gets fired, there'll probably be a rebuild. They're going to be moving to get younger. Drew Brees, how many years is he going to be on the Saints before they're looking for somebody? Tampa Bay, obviously Tom Brady's probably going to be there at max 2 years, maybe even less than that. We'll see. Injuries can happen to anybody. So with that being said, I feel like everybody in the division is kind of in the same boat that they were, except for we have our what's next with Teddy Bridgewater. I believe we have, or they have, the what's next. They have somebody that I believe is, when he's healthy, can be the guy. So if you ask me, these next couple of years, gonna be rough. But after that, when everybody else is looking at things the same way that they just were when Cam left, and we already have what we need to move forward, I think it won't be long before we're at the top as an established team, and they're going to be wondering what they need to do to catch up. But that's just my opinion. But
that's a good opinion, I think.
No, solid.
Yeah, it's a solid train of thought on that. I mean, they're ascending. Like I said, they're going through their rough spot now. But I mean, within 2 years, you're going to see Brady gone. You're going to see Brees gone.
Yeah, at least.
So I mean, you don't just lose talent like that. And like you said, I mean, them losing Cam Newton was a big thing.
Yeah.
But
again, if you're going to do that and have all these things happen, get it out of the way when realistically you probably weren't winning anyways this year. I mean, the Saints are going to be tough. The Bucks, obviously, they just, they had weapons. They only added more. And the Falcons are always, have been the Falcons. They're kind of a wishy-washy team, but they're still tough. So, again, while these teams are probably going to be leading the division anyways, get some of this stuff figured out. And then, in 2 years, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints and the Bucs are out, no Drew Brees or Tom Brady. And then who knows what will happen with the Falcons. But if that happens, I'd say the Panthers are right there at the top because they have their quarterback. They have an established defense. And offensively, they got McCaffrey, and they got, get a couple weapons on the wide receiving core. I think they're attractive in free agency because, like Don said earlier, they're one of the top-tier teams, in my opinion. Like Dad said in another video, you don't hear too many people leaving Carolina and trashing the organization. It's usually pretty good stuff is said about it from a majority of the players. Not everybody, but, that's football. But moving forward, again, like I said, going to be a rough couple years, but past that, the future is very bright. And if Bridgewater can stay healthy, I really don't think they need to be in the market for a new quarterback. Maybe picking one up in the draft just in case he has injury issues, yes. But I don't think they need to be actively going
out of necessity.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be out of necessity because if you can keep him up, I think he has the makings to be what they thought he could be in Minnesota and what he was when he was on the field. And what he was when he was on the field for the Saints last year. So, good stuff for Carolina.
Well said.
Good stuff for Carolina moving forward, I think. But speaking of the Saints, let's go ahead and move on to them next. What do you guys think about the Saints?
Well, Saints, I'll go ahead and lead it. Time's ticking. With that, it's all going to be on Breeze. I think they underestimated their loss of Ingram because that gave them the bell cow that they could run the ball, chew up clock. They do have a great offense, but again, as always, is Peyton. It's smoke and mirrors and doing all this weird stuff with it. But again, if they get in tight games, they're in trouble. They have to be in a lead, at least 14 points to 21 points, because the defense, again, just needs to make plays when they need to make plays. But if they actually need to make a stop, it usually doesn't happen.
Nope.
That's the reason why they usually lose games. And well, why didn't they lose that? Well, they got into a game where the offense was either not working very well or just having a bad day.
Yep.
That's with it. But again, not to say that, it's not a team that I do not want to fall behind on. And that's going to be their key to the whole season this year, is how fast they can get up on somebody and how quick they can extend that lead. But like you said, if it's going to be a tight game, and usually playoffs are, I think they're going to struggle with that in that point.
Yep.
I've always thought they were a pretty solid organization. I mean, always contending, had a lot of good players go through there, like Michael Thomas now. I mean, really good player, but he just got recently injured, so that might hurt them going forward, but I definitely expect them to be at least contending for a playoff spot this year.
Yep. I expect them to be doing more than contending for a playoff spot. I think they'll be a tough out no matter who they play, but again, he said it best when he said, what's the reason why majority of these years we keep seeing them as favorites going in, but then they can't ever seem to get over the hump. And who do they usually lose to? Teams with good defenses that halt their offense, and they can't stop anybody on the other side of it. It's the same thing year after year, pretty much. And because offensively, they've always had, as good, if not better than the majority of teams with weapons on the field. But, you can only do so much when you're having to score 35 to win a game every single week. You have to beat 35 because you can rely on your defense giving up that much every single week. And then injuries always going to play a part. But there's a difference between some teams that injuries derail their entire season, and then other teams where injuries are just, you wouldn't even realize they have any because they just keep on chugging it. You pick and plug. Somebody goes down, somebody else comes in. It doesn't even look like a downgrade. So I think the Saints are going to be just fine. I think they're going to. I think a lot of people would probably put them as somebody that could come out of the NFC. I think they could. I don't think they will, but I think they're definitely a solid team, and anybody that wants to win or come out of the NFC, they're going to have somebody that you're probably going to have to deal with. And unless you have a solid defense or an outstanding offense in your own right, it'll be a game. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the Saints have been a team that I think a lot of people get behind. They've had a lot go on in that city from the flooding and all this kind of stuff. All that happened, and I think the fan base kind of rallied around it. And so with that being said, not having fans in the stadium, this is one team that would affect. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of what they do is predicated on the fans being so loud that nobody can hear shit. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If you're on the opposing team. So their home games are really important. And, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know exactly what their home record's been, but I'm sure it's got to be pretty darn stout.
They don't lose too many.
Yeah, I mean, their losses are usually going to happen on the road.
Yeah. Except for that Rams game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point being, though, the Saints, I mean, they pretty much for the last, decade, I would say.
Ever
since Drew walked into town.
Since Drew came into town from San Diego.
I mean, it's been pretty darn good there. And the fans have been blessed with having Drew there, and Drew's made, some not so good offensive lines look pretty decent. Because he gets rid of the ball quickly, and he's accurate, and
he's pulled more than his own weight on that team.
No, above and beyond.
Yeah,
and also in the city too. I mean, outside of football as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm sure he's not paying for too many meals when he goes out to eat. So, with that being said, I like the Saints a lot. I think, even though Tampa Bay's got quite a few additions and everything, I think the road still runs through New Orleans as far as winning that division.
Yep, and I think too. Just one last thing before we actually get into Tampa Bay, I would say with New Orleans, I think if they, like you said, maybe not this year because of the fan situation, but usually, if they get one of the top seeds where the road has to go through there and everybody has to play in the Superdome, that's asking for troubles because their fans are passionate and they just get loud in there, and you have a hard time hearing anything. I have a hard time hearing the announcers over the the noise in the background. So I think, again, like you said, Tampa Bay should be a solid opponent for them this year, but I think the Saints, if they play the way that they usually play, they'll be just fine.
No, they're not going away this year.
Nope.
They've got enough talent on that roster. Defensively, I've always questioned their defensive game there, but one of the problems that teams like the Saints run into is, they score so quick and so fast, and the defense is on the field a lot of the game.
Yeah, because they make explosive plays.
Right. I mean, and they constantly, are in a position where, the drive took a minute and 48 seconds,
Yeah.
And they're down the field and scoring. And, I mean, so the defense ends up spending a lot of time on the field.
Yeah.
That's not to say that they don't have deficiencies there, but just saying there's a lot of factors involved with stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, the Saints are in no way, shape, or form a train wreck.
Yeah.
I think they'll be just fine. So
yeah. And with that, let's go to probably their main opposition for this year, Tampa Bay.
Oh, as of right now, I got nothing but good things to say about Tampa Bay. I think, man, they're going to be tough to beat. Especially this year, I think they're going to be very tough. I don't know exactly how Brady's gonna pan out. I mean, if he's still playing like his old self or whatever. But I think if he is playing at least somewhat decent, they're gonna be really tough. I mean, their defense is really good. I mean, they got a lot of weapons, good coaching staff. It's a lot of good things going on there, and I definitely look forward to seeing what happens.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, this is obviously New Orleans going to be their nemesis that they got to overcome.
Yeah.
I think the way that the Buccaneers are set up right now, they've pretty much got everything you need to win.
Yeah.
And I don't even think Brady needs to be great. He just needs to manage the game and just make the simple throws and this and that. Because, I mean, let's face it, the Patriots won a lot of championships, probably with less talent than any team has. I mean, they don't have. I mean, they never had, outside of having Randy Moss, they never had anybody that was some major star. They've always done it with guys that you hardly ever heard of. And so, I mean, Brady's used to working with,
serviceable guys.
Right, guys that just come to work and put their hats on and, get the job done. Mm-hmm. Well, now he's got guys that are superstar players. And then now they signed Fournette. I mean, that guy's a beast. Good luck stopping him when he gets the head of steam going. I mean,
yeah. We only gave up 230 yards with him last year, so what are you talking about?
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, my point is that Tampa Bay is really set up to win right now. And, I mean, I would be surprised, truthfully, if Brady plays past this season. I think everything's kind of, set up for them to have a chance. And actually, I think because of the fact that we've had this COVID situation where we didn't have preseason and all this stuff, they got an advantage in that nobody really knows what they're going to throw at you. They got Gronk, they got Fournette, they got the receiving cast that's already been there, which is great, and they got a defense, and I mean, I don't know where they're going to get, I mean, as the weeks go on, obviously teams are going to pick up on kind of what they like to do, but, I mean, they just got, basically a three-headed monster there. When you talk about, Fournette, and now you got all these receivers on there, and, I mean, Gronk, and, I mean, their tight end situation is beyond phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, every flipping tight end they have can play at a high level. So, I mean, this team is kind of in good shape to win. Now, whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. But if they don't, there'll be some questions asked of the coach, in my opinion. Because, I mean, a lot of money was put into this season. A lot of players were brought in. And when you do that, expectations are going high.
Yep.
So I liken it to what the Clippers did in basketball. Brought in a lot of high-priced talent. Now you got to show it. You got to play it. You got to play it you got to play for a championship. Otherwise, it's a miserable season.
Yeah, and then everybody's questioning afterwards what the hell happened, and
right.
You have more negativity than positivity going forward.
I mean, and that's just the way it works. And I kind of liken this situation to that. Because, I mean, now Brady is not, I mean, he's 43 years old now, I think he is. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't expect to see him play like he would have 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. He's slowed down some. But I think they got enough weapons. He doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be decent. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that he's going to bring to the game that sets him apart from most quarterbacks is he can read defenses. He knows what's coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's been one of the best between him and Manning. I've never seen guys read defenses better as a whole. Mm-hmm. So
not only
you always got a chance to win when you got that kind of quarterback.
Yeah, not only that, but he's got a lot of Super Bowls to show for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and even losses in Super Bowls. I mean,
just
the fact that you've been to that many. I mean,
like big game appearances. He knows how to play in the moment.
Yeah. Well, so that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay, it's as we do here in Nevada, is all in with this. And again, first thing off the bat is that they got rid of the turnover machine and Jameis Winston. But he's in New Orleans, so hey, you actually might run into him, down the road too. Yeah. And that might not be a good thing for Tampa, because he's going to know everything that was there. So I mean, you can't tell me that he's not going to be a key piece for New Orleans going down the rest of the season. Going, hey, Tampa does this,
yeah,
with it. So
exactly.
So that could be a rogue thing that could derail him. Mm-hmm. That's on it. But again, like I said, you bring in Gronk, you bring in Fournette, you bring in Brady. You're going for it at this moment, and it's full throttle. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the key thing with Brady is that he's not going to be a turnover machine as bad. So then that means the defense is more rested. They're not getting put in bad positions like they were before with Jameis. And then they are a good defense, because I miss Shaq Barrett. I wish I had Shaq Barrett right now. Yeah. Because we could use him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he would be replacing Von Miller right now, and be like, okay, we're still moving full steam ahead with that, but that isn't happening. So, so I just totally see it as if everything goes right, I don't see him, not going backwards at all. Like I said, the only pieces that's with it is I don't trust Arians. He's Cardinals. He wasn't great. I mean, he was great with the Steelers, but most people are. It seems like,
Exactly.
Oh, that was great. Oh yeah, I had all these weapons and Big Ben. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Hey Ben, just go out there and throw it. All right. You know what I mean? So again, with this, I don't know. So when it comes down to where he needs to make a call or make a decision, that's where I'm going to see that's where their potential weak spot could be. Mm-hmm. That's with it. But if you just go off the roster, and like I said, they're built for now, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yep. My take on it is really just just to summarize everything they said, because I echo a lot of the same sentiments. I think you look at it on paper and you think, who's going to be beating them if they play to potential, because they got the just complete team, really. They got an offensive line that's pretty good. They got Fournette. Any weaknesses maybe that they did have, which I wouldn't even consider weaknesses, but anything that they did have that could have been better, they improved on. And they did what teams need to do if they want to win. And that, they're a perfect example of a team. And this is why I say, and why you probably hear the same thing from everybody else up here, is that if you really want to win, it's not hard to make it happen. Because look at what Tampa Bay did. I mean, they were garbage for a while, and then all of a sudden they make this happen, and then they had a little bit, went out, signed a couple players, and boom, Super Bowl contenders, like immediately. And again, there's only so many Tom Brady's and people of that caliber out there, but at the same time, I'm just saying, if you want to win, you can make it happen, and it doesn't have to take 10 years to do so, because just a couple years ago they were the doormat. We were wondering if they were going to get the first or the second pick. Now all of a sudden we're wondering who's beating them in the playoffs. So barring injuries and stuff like that, they will probably be in the playoffs. So I think, really, like Don said, their biggest test is just going to be the coaching. But as far as offense is concerned, I kind of liken it to the LeBron James kind of thing. How much coaching are you really needing to do on the offensive side of the ball? Because Brady has been around the league for so long, and just what he's done better than most, like Dad alluded to, is read defenses, find ways to call audibles and stuff that put his team in best situations for plays, based on what the defense is giving you. When you have somebody that can do that, that makes up for deficiencies in other areas. And again, like they alluded to, Yes, Brady is probably not going to be what he was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, however long you want to look back. But at the same time, he doesn't need to be. He's got some ball-hawking players on that team. You throw the ball in the general vicinity of Mike Evans, good luck on the defense. You just put it in his general vicinity, and unless he's being double covered, he has probably better than a 50% chance to come away with it. So I definitely think that unlike what the Patriots were doing for him, or at least I feel, where they were trying to improve the talent around him as he started getting older, it kind of seemed like they weren't doing a very good job at that. I feel like the Buccaneers did it right and said, hey, we realize that you're probably not going to be the same, but we're going to give you more weapons than you probably ever had on offense in New England. And we're just going to say, put it all in your hands. And again, offensively and just how he is he the same player? No, but he doesn't need to be, because he has more than enough other things to make up for it. He's got a great defense. Leonard Fournette, he was the Jacksonville offense. He had them winning games when, the year that they were really good. How much of that was Blake Bortles? Probably not too much, but Leonard Fournette, when you have a weapon like that, you got to load the box, or you're just going to get the ball ran down your throat for 100 yards a game, and then the passing game's going to work. So it's just, these are just players that you can't really have an answer to. And then on top of that, you take Tom Brady's just mental IQ of the game of football, and it's just going to be a rough time for anybody that plays them. It on paper.
It's deflating, really.
Yeah, for a lot of
and truthfully too, where his value is really going to start to kick in is come playoff time. A guy like that, a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or somebody like that, they beat you mentally. When they know what's coming, you're in trouble.
Yep.
And
they always
like
do.
we said, Brady's never had this kind of talent around him. And since he's been in the league, in my opinion, he's done a great job of taking, teams that were kind of deficient on the offensive end and put them in the spotlight and been able to pull wins out of it.
Yeah.
So
they'll be just fine.
They're going to be. I think Tampa Bay is sitting in a really nice spot. I still think, like I said, the road goes through New Orleans in order to win the division.
But, no, I was going to say, as having Manning, when it drops off like a hammer.
Yeah.
And it's just not like all of a sudden like, oh, he's not getting it there. It looks like a totally different player.
Yep.
So if that day, it's a ticking time bomb. Yep. You just don't know when it's going to happen. Yep. And if it does happen, then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
That does it.
But because if it doesn't,
well, no, because like I said, I sat there and I'm like, oh yeah, they should be. And then next thing he's throwing 5 interceptions against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of his cerebral ability.
Yeah.
It was his physical ability.
Yep.
So if his physical ability goes down at any moment during this season, it could be a train wreck.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, it could be detrimental for sure.
Yep.
However, with that being said, Manning had more serious injuries than Brady's ever had.
No, that was the Super Bowl year, the one he won the Super Bowl. We had to start Osweiler. Osweiler had to come in.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually play games and actually had to win games in New England.
Yeah.
He had to win those games because Manning was
not
performing at all because he was hurt.
Yeah.
And that's with it. And then, he's not mobile. Mm-hmm. So if you get if you have, just as an example, I don't think too many teams in the NFC, but if you have a Blitzburg, it's going to cause a lot of problems because he can't move. Mm-hmm. That's with it. So if he takes hits, and that's been his weakness, you get in his face, he can't move, he makes bad decisions with it. So, but again, if you don't do that, you're going to be in there for a long day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So
the blueprint's laid out. It's pretty much the same thing no matter where he's at. It's the same thing every season. If you don't get pressure on him, then he just picks you apart all day long. And again, like he said, as long as he doesn't drop off the deep end with his physical ability, then I expect more of the same that we've been seeing for years and years and years. Maybe he's not making the deep passes like he used to, but he just knows what's going on so well that he kills you with the other stuff. I mean, up until a certain time, the Patriots, they had, 3 losses last year? And people were talking about, they didn't have the weapons around them. They still only lost 3 games in the regular season.
Yeah, still number 2 seed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
and that came to week 17.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, well, guess what? How deficient were they? And he still can make up for that kind of stuff, but now he has even more to work with. And again, like he said, as long as on paper they should be one of the toughest teams out there, and if he just plays like he did last year, even, they'll be just fine. They should be able to beat pretty much anybody. I don't think there's anybody that they just don't have a chance against.
No, there's nobody
NFC,
out there they're scared
AFC, I don't care.
Yeah, there's nobody out there they're afraid of. I mean, they know they can play with anybody.
Yep.
With the talent they got.
Maybe Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah. There's some dark horses in there, but again, on paper though, they should. Yeah.
But as a whole, I mean, that's a tough division again.
Yep.
Well, it's quarterback club, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's whoever plays better,
Yep.
either Breeze or Brady. In the first matchup, it was Breeze, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, again, whoever plays the best between those two, I think is going to determine the division.
Yep.
No, I agree. It's definitely a good division.
But like we talked about before, in some cases, because of the fact with the fans and stuff, I don't think it's necessarily going to come down to who wins the division and gets home field advantage as it would most years, because there's just not going to be fans in a majority of the teams, so it's an even playing field in that.
I think that could change though before the end of the season. I mean.
Well, yeah, but some teams have already announced that there's going to be none.
Well, it just depends on
right?
too. Then how many wounds do you take along the way?
Yeah, exactly.
And how many L's you take, because guess what? That Tampa or that New Orleans, guess what? Nice weather, dome, and then you have to go somewhere that's nasty and and cold like Green Bay. Guess what happens?
Yeah,
that offense doesn't look the same, because guess what? You've got temperature, and that's where exhibit of the Titans comes in, where you go, good luck.
Yep.
Tackle this.
But Brady himself should be just fine in that environment.
No. Let's say they won't be with it.
Yeah,
but again, they're going to be acclimated to that.
Yep, exactly.
This year. So then, if you're going in the 68 weather, and then here you go in January and December, -4.
Best of luck, guys.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You think you
just never know. Like I said, home field advantage, no matter what it is, it still plays a part in it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you think you're getting cramps
it's
now?
It's not a bad thing to have it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's definitely going to play a part. It always does, but I just think it's going to play a lesser part than it would most years.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, let's finish off. Who's winning the division?
I got the Bucks, to be honest.
I'm sticking with the Saints.
I'm going to say Saints, just on the weird thing of Jameis Winston.
Okay. I'm gonna say Bucks. All right. Well, but anyway, I mean, either team, they're both going to be in the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. So whoever wins the division.
I think so. The way we're looking at it, the only thing that will probably determine that will probably be the NFC West.
Yes,
because
that's true.
They seem like that's
not the NFC East.
Not this year. Usually it is, because the NFL loves the NFC East. Yeah. Speaking of losing to almost every team in the Super Bowl from that division. Because I know the biz and how that works. But so but yeah, if the NFC West does not load up on the wild cards, but again, we have expanded playoffs.
Yeah, an extra team in there this year.
There's extra team, so you never know.
Just in case.
Right? Well, again, you just never know. Like you said, I mean, you could the way it looks now, that could have all 4 teams go. You know what I mean? Who knows? It's just really weird. But I mean, eventually they're going to play each other
Exactly.
and beat up each other. But if the NFC East, has shown what they've shown this season, guess what? That opens up.
Yep.
More things, and you might have a team that's sub 500. They used to have like, hey, I was 7-9, I won a division.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And just to close, I'll say something that I said earlier, but I'll say it again just to close us out, is that team that's probably going to win the division, in my mind, it's obviously going to be Saints or Bucks. I'm leaning more towards the Bucks, but I don't disagree with anybody that says Saints. But team with the brightest future, I think, is Carolina. I think they could very easily be the team to beat in maybe even 3 years. Depending on how long Brady and Breeze stick around for, I think they could be the team to beat.
Even if they do stick around.
Yeah.
I see Carolina going up. I mean, they got a lot of nice stuff.
New Orleans is going to have Jameis.
Well, and that's the thing, with like the Bucks.
Maybe, because he's on a 1-year contract. But,
yeah. With the Bucks, though, I mean, that's another thing we talked about. They put all their eggs into one basket, which hopefully works out for them. But when that basket ends up, they don't have a whole lot to work around after that. So this is either it or not it. Yep. And then it's going to be blown up, and everybody's trading everywhere.
They'll be the Bucks like they used to be the Bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And the Saints, at least the last 10 years, they've been pretty consistent. But before then, without the quarterback, they were just another team out there. They were not really that great. So
Bobby Aber.
And we already discussed the Falcons on the struggles they're having and the sinking ship that they seem to be a part of. So with that being said, who else is there? Carolina.
Like I said, Carolina plays their cards right. They'll be there.
All right, guys. Well, with that being said, this has been another video, another breakdown of another division, the NFC South. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button. If you want to share your thoughts on who you think's winning the division or what you think about this team or that team, leave it down in the description. And this has been DENT Sports and Tuned In Sports mixed together for this video, and we will see you guys in the next video.